Hi, everybody. This chapter is called Reading in Academic Contexts. So, this chapter you really should, um, and lecture and notes, pay close attention to, especially regarding our first paper of the semester, so that as you're reading the two articles and choosing which one you want to write a summary and response to, you will know some strategies and learn some new skills on how to read academic types of writing. So, reading strategically is the first segment here. And there's a little diagram off to the right with different kinds of critical reading skills that you should be concerned with: patterns, tools, the definitions of words, vocabulary. Academic reading is challenging, requiring new vocabulary and concepts as well as difficult key ideas. So, how can you deal with the challenges of reading strategically? First, preview the text. So, read the title, read any bold or italicized headings, read the first paragraph, look at visuals. You can kind of skim through the rest of the article and see what might be helpful to you before you actually read it. Adjust your reading speed with academic texts. So read slower than what you're used to. You may need to reread several times. And look for organizational cues. So look at the introduction paragraph, find the thesis, look at transitions, look at headings. So these are kind of the very first things to do when you approach a challenging text or any text that's more academic or scholarly in nature. We all read a lot on a daily basis, but we read texts, we read abbreviations, we read tweets. We perhaps skim an article or read the first couple of paragraphs and then scroll and then click to the next thing and then link to the next thing. So we're constantly linking. And here we want to concern ourselves with making sure we read an entire paper from beginning to end critically and thoughtfully. What is your initial response to a text? So, what are your initial reactions? What do you think about it, both emotionally and intellectually? And why do you react the way you do? What in your life, experiences, reading, knowledge, schooling, etc., contribute to this reaction? We all bring different life experiences, of course, to anything that we read. And those life experiences will help us determine not only how to read it and how to think about it, but how we're going to react to it. So, more on dealing with difficult texts. First, as you're reading, look for something familiar, such as knowledge about the topic. So, for instance, the two articles that I've posted are both fairly short. Both are New York Times opinion columns. Both are around 1,000 words. One of them is about the COVID-2 vaccine. And we all have some knowledge about this topic just from living in a world where we've been in a pandemic for a year and a half. The other article is about community college education. Obviously, that's something you all have knowledge of because you're living it right now. Read the text at least twice. The first time is just for a feel of it. And the second time is to use the landmarks that you've learned from that first time of reading to create connections. Monitor your understanding and concentration. Think about what helps you concentrate more as you read. Persist. Read a third time if necessary. Try not to get distracted. And then finally, annotate and code. So you know about annotations. People use highlighters. You can write notes in the margins of the book or on sticky notes that you put in the book. You can write notes in a separate journal or notebook. You can underline sentences or phrases. Use symbols in your own kind of code to help you understand, such as an exclamation mark or a question mark or some kind of squiggly line that in your own code you understand what that means. So all of these are strategies for dealing with a hard, challenging academic text. Another thing to do is you read critically. So you're reading an article, and the article takes a stance. It is an argument that's trying to persuade you one way or the other. So you kind of play a game called believing and doubting. The first way to start this game is to read the text and believe the author's perspective. Even if you don't, you are reading from their perspective and you're believing them. Why do they argue the point in that way? What are their points that they make? How can you believe it? What makes you believe it? And then now read the text again, doubting everything about the author's argument. Why would you disagree with them, even if you don't literally? What makes you disagree? What is it about the wording, about the research, about the path of logic through the argument, about the examples, anything that perhaps causes you to doubt? So believing and doubting. Another thing to do is to consider what the text says versus what the text does, and then to identify patterns. So let me explain this a little bit more. What the text says are really just its ideas. In thinking about what the text says, you are summarizing the main ideas, reasons, and evidence that support that idea. Look for the order in which the topics are presented. So what the text says is not your opinion. It's what the author is claiming in that text. What is that author's argument? You're not providing your opinion. Now, what the text does, you're still not providing your opinion. But what you're thinking about when you're trying to understand what the text does is the function of individual paragraphs. What strategies does the author use to create his or her paragraphs? For example, does a paragraph introduce a topic? Does it describe something? Does it use cause and effect to make an argument? Does it perhaps provide definitions? Does it have a narrative? Does it explain? All of those are strategies. Think about the actual strategies that the author uses, and that is what the text does. What it says is the ideas themselves, just a summary of the ideas. What it does is how the author creates and constructs those ideas through words, through vocabulary, through language. Reading rhetorically. We're going to talk about rhetoric all semester, which, if you see the definition to the right by Aristotle, is the ability in all cases to see the available means of persuasion. In all cases, that is any kind of writing. What are the available means of persuasion? That is rhetoric. Reading rhetorically means looking beyond the words to the context and argument of the text. Remember, as I said in the prior slideshow, texts are parts of conversations about a particular topic. And you must understand the full context of a topic to enter those conversations. For example, who else cares about this topic? What specialized terms does the author use? What sources does he or she cite? Let's think about the first article that I posted for your consideration for paper number 1, your summary response. And that first article is about the COVID vaccine. Who cares about this? Well, everybody. All people in all nations. But as you read deeper and further into that particular argument, you'll see the narrow specifics of who cares about that particular topic. There are specialized terms that the author uses. There are sources that he cites. So all of these things are important and careful to consider as you read the article rhetorically. And then the final slide here is about reading visual texts. There will be articles that we read this semester in our book that have visuals attached to them. For example, charts and graphs. Read all details carefully. Look at captions, text, color, the legend, and anything else that's part of the illustration. And finally, reading on screen. We're already reading on screen. You're welcome to print anything, but if you don't have a printer or don't like to print things, then you're reading them on screen. Again, adjust your reading speed, concentrate, Don't click to another link or get distracted. I realize all of these are easier said than done, but these are all strategies to help you upskill yourself in reading critically and reading rhetorically. Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.